The chandelier, a constellation of crystal and light, cast shimmering patterns across the mahogany table. Around it sat the architects of a kingdom, their faces etched with the quiet power that comes from unimaginable wealth. The air, thick with the scent of old money and unspoken ambition, vibrated with the low hum of a pivotal board meeting. Outside, Paris glittered, oblivious to the storm brewing within these gilded walls. I watched him, a man who had built an empire from the ground up, a man who commanded respect with a mere glance, suddenly falter. A flicker of unease, almost imperceptible, crossed his features as he listened to the polished presentation unfolding before him. It was a subtle shift, a crack in the carefully constructed facade of confidence, but it was enough. It was the kind of thing you saw only if you knew what to look for, if you'd learned to read the unspoken language of boardrooms where fortunes were won and lost on a whispered word. The presentation continued, a symphony of projected growth and strategic acquisitions, but his eyes, once laser-focused, now darted nervously around the table. He was searching, I realized, hunting for something or someone. The weight of his gaze landed momentarily on each face. The seasoned CFO, a man whose loyalty had been bought and paid for years ago. The ambitious marketing director, hungry for power and recognition. The family lawyer, a stoic figure whose silence spoke volumes. Each face was a mask, carefully crafted to conceal whatever lay beneath. He trusted none of them, I suspected, and perhaps rightfully so. Then, the unexpected happened. A small hand, adorned with a brightly colored friendship bracelet, tugged gently at his sleeve. He looked down, surprised, into the wide, innocent eyes of a child. She was the daughter of one of the board members, a young girl who had been quietly sketching in a corner, seemingly oblivious to the high-stakes drama unfolding around her. Her presence was an anomaly, a splash of vibrant color in a monochrome world. He leaned in, his expression softening slightly, a rare glimpse of the man beneath the tycoon. She whispered something in his ear, her voice barely audible above the murmur of the meeting. "She's lying to the board." The words, simple and direct, hung in the air like a fragile butterfly. The room seemed to fall silent, though the presentation droned on, unheard. The weight of those 5 words settled upon him, a seed of doubt planted in fertile ground. He looked back at the presenter, a woman whose carefully constructed image exuded competence and control. Was it possible? Could someone so seemingly trustworthy be capable of such profound deception? He dismissed the thought almost immediately. It was ridiculous, a child's fantasy. Yet the seed had been planted, and he knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that he couldn't ignore it. That night, fueled by a restless energy he hadn't felt in years, he began to investigate. He started subtly, asking seemingly innocuous questions, probing for inconsistencies, testing the waters. The responses he received were smooth, polished, and ultimately unconvincing. The unease grew, morphing into annoying suspicion. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a precipice, peering into an abyss of unknown depths. He knew that if he jumped, he might find himself falling into a world of betrayal and deceit. But he also knew that he couldn't stay where he was. The truth, whatever it might be, had to be uncovered. He remembered something, a discarded file he had stumbled upon weeks ago, a file containing what was labeled a private recording. He had dismissed it at the time, assuming it was irrelevant. Now it seemed like the only thread he had to cling to. He retrieved the file, his hands trembling slightly as he inserted the drive into his computer. He hesitated for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that once he pressed play, there would be no turning back. The world he knew, the world he had built, might crumble before his eyes. But the alternative, living in ignorance, being manipulated and deceived, was simply unacceptable. He clicked the play button. The recording began, a low hum of background noise punctuated by hushed voices. At first, it was unintelligible, a jumble of fragmented conversations. Then, slowly, the voices began to coalesce, forming coherent sentences, revealing hidden agendas, exposing clandestine affairs. The truth, like a venomous serpent, began to uncoil, its scales shimmering in the darkness. He listened, transfixed, as the carefully constructed web of deceit unraveled before him. The recording was a ticking time bomb, threatening to shatter the illusion of trust and expose the rot that had been festering beneath the surface of his empire. He knew then that everything was about to change. The board meeting was just the beginning, the game had begun, and the stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. As the recorded voices echoed in the dimly lit study, each revelation felt like a physical blow. The woman, Isabel Moreau, the one the child had pointed out, was indeed at the heart of the deception. Her polished presentations were a facade, masking a series of calculated maneuvers designed to siphon funds from the company into offshore accounts. Moreover, the recording exposed a network of complicity, implicating several other board members who had been secretly working against him, their loyalty bought with promises of wealth and power. The betrayal cut deep, not just as a business affront, but as a personal wound. These were people he had trusted, colleagues he had considered friends. The motives, as they unraveled, were a tangled web of greed, envy, and resentment. Isabel, it turned out, harbored a deep-seated bitterness, fueled by a perceived lack of recognition for her contributions to the company's success. She believed she deserved more, that her talents had been overlooked in favor of others. The other conspirators were driven by a similar sense of entitlement, a belief that they were owed a greater share of the pie. They saw him as an obstacle, a barrier to their own ambitions, and they were willing to do whatever it took to remove him from the equation. In essence, a silent coup was underway, masterminded from the shadows. It wasn't merely about pilfering assets. The recording hinted at a larger scheme, a plan to destabilize the company and orchestrate a hostile takeover. Isabel and her cohorts were working with a rival corporation, feeding them inside information and sabotaging key projects to drive down the company's stock price. Once the price was low enough, the rival would swoop in, acquiring a controlling interest and effectively seizing control of his empire. The thought was sickening. He had dedicated his life to building this company, pouring his heart and soul into every decision, every deal, every innovation. And now it was all at risk, threatened by the treachery of those closest to him. Consider, now, the layers of intrigue. The recording wasn't just a collection of incriminating conversations. It was a window into the complex dynamics of human relationships, the delicate balance of power, and the corrosive effects of unchecked ambition. It revealed the lengths to which people would go to achieve their goals, the compromises they were willing to make, and the moral boundaries they were willing to cross. It highlighted the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of its betrayal. Think for a moment about the emotional toll this took. The man wasn't just fighting for his company. He was fighting for his legacy, for his sense of self. His identity was inextricably linked to his work, and the prospect of losing it all was a crushing blow. As the night wore on, he listened to the recording again and again, each time uncovering new details, new nuances, new layers of deception. He pieced together the puzzle, connecting the dots, identifying the key players, and uncovering their individual roles in the conspiracy. He felt a growing sense of anger, but also a sense of determination. He wouldn't let them win. He wouldn't allow them to destroy everything he had built. He would fight back, not with the same underhanded tactics they had employed, but with integrity, with truth, and with unwavering resolve. Consequently, he knew he had to act swiftly and decisively. He couldn't afford to hesitate, to second-guess himself, or to let his emotions cloud his judgment. He needed a plan, a strategy to expose the conspiracy and reclaim control of his company. He needed to gather evidence, to build a case that would stand up to scrutiny, and to enlist the support of those who remained loyal. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He was facing powerful adversaries, people who were willing to stop at nothing to achieve their goals. But he was also a formidable opponent, a man who had overcome countless challenges in his life, a man who had never backed down from a fight. And this, he knew, was the fight of his life. It was a battle for his empire, for his reputation, and for his very soul. Consider for a moment the intricate emotional architecture of Isabelle Moreau. Her motivations, while rooted in avarice, were also deeply intertwined with a yearning for validation. It wasn't solely about the money. It was about proving her worth, about shattering the glass ceiling she felt confined by. Her ambition, initially a driving force for innovation within the company, had become twisted and corrupted by resentment and a perceived lack of recognition. The seeds of betrayal were sown long ago, nurtured by a culture that, perhaps inadvertently, favored certain voices over others. Now contemplate this. Her actions, while reprehensible, were a symptom of a larger systemic issue, a reflection of the cutthroat environment that often pervades high-stakes corporate settings. Furthermore, the complicity of the other board members underscores the seductive allure of power and the ease with which individuals can rationalize unethical behavior when driven by self-interest. Their loyalty, once seemingly unwavering, proved to be conditional, easily swayed by the promise of personal gain. The recording revealed not just their betrayal, but also their inherent vulnerability, their susceptibility to manipulation, and their willingness to compromise their integrity for a slice of the pie. It serves as a stark reminder that even the most seemingly trustworthy individuals can succumb to the temptations of greed and ambition. It is a dark reflection of human nature, a testament to the corrupting influence of unchecked power. Conversely, one should not entirely dismiss the psychological impact of the man's leadership style. While undeniably successful, his relentless pursuit of perfection and his demanding nature may have inadvertently created an atmosphere of fear and resentment. The conspirators perhaps felt justified in their actions, viewing them as a form of rebellion against his perceived tyranny. This doesn't excuse their behavior, of course, but it does offer a more nuanced perspective on the dynamics at play. It highlights the importance of empathy and understanding in leadership, the need to cultivate a culture of trust and respect, where employees feel valued and appreciated, rather than merely exploited. Another crucial layer is the role of the young girl. Her innocent observation, her simple declaration of truth, served as the catalyst for the entire sequence of events. Her naivete, untainted by the cynicism and self-interest that permeated the boardroom, allowed her to see through the facade and recognize the deception for what it was. She represents a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, truth and integrity can prevail. Her presence underscores the importance of listening to the voices of the marginalized, of valuing the perspectives of those who are often overlooked or dismissed. She is a symbol of innocence in a world of corruption, a testament to the power of truth to overcome deceit. Consider how this applies when you face similar situations in your own life. Betrayal can manifest in many forms, not just in the corporate world, but also in personal relationships, friendships, and even within families. The key is to be vigilant, to pay attention to the subtle signs of deception, and to trust your instincts. Don't be afraid to question authority, to challenge the status quo, and to speak out against injustice. And most importantly, remember the importance of integrity, of staying true to your values, even when faced with difficult choices. The immediate imperative was to establish an unimpeachable channel of communication, a confidential conduit through which to disseminate information and rally support. He couldn't rely on internal systems. now compromised by the very individuals he needed to circumvent. Instead, he resurrected an antiquated encrypted messaging system, a relic from his early entrepreneurial days, known only to a handful of trusted confidants outside the company's immediate sphere. This digital back channel became his lifeline, a secure space for strategizing and coordinating his counteroffensive. With that said, true safety resided not merely in technological safeguards, but in the judicious selection of allies. He turned to his longtime personal attorney, a woman of unwavering integrity and sharp intellect, whose counsel he valued above all others. She, in turn, recommended a forensic accountant, a specialist in uncovering hidden assets and tracing illicit financial flows, a veritable bloodhound of the balance sheets. These two individuals, operating independently yet in perfect synchronicity, became his core team, his shield against the impending storm. It's worth noting that the decision to involve outside counsel carried its own inherent risks. It meant exposing the company's vulnerabilities to individuals outside the inner circle, individuals who, however trustworthy, could potentially become liabilities. Nonetheless, the potential benefits outweighed the risks. He needed objective perspectives, unbiased analysis, and the legal expertise to navigate the complex web of corporate law. Moreover, their presence would serve as a deterrent, a signal to the conspirators that he was not acting alone, that he had powerful allies on his side. However, he understood that he couldn't solely rely on legal and financial maneuvering. He needed to address the human element, to appeal to the consciences of those who might still be wavering, to expose the lies and manipulations that had led them astray. He drafted a carefully worded statement, a direct address to the company's employees, outlining the situation and appealing to their sense of loyalty and fairness. The statement was not accusatory or inflammatory. Rather, it was a plea for transparency and accountability, a call for unity in the face of adversity. As an illustration, think of the potential impact on mid-level managers who might have been coerced or misled by Isabel and her cohorts. Many of these individuals likely felt trapped, caught between their loyalty to the company and their fear of reprisal. The statement offered them a way out, a chance to redeem themselves and align themselves with the side of truth. It was a calculated gamble, but one he felt was necessary to win the hearts and minds of the rank and file. But it's also important to acknowledge the inherent limitations of such an approach. Some individuals were simply too entrenched in the conspiracy, too deeply invested in their own personal gain, to be swayed by appeals to their conscience. Others may have been motivated by fear, convinced that their only option was to remain silent and complicit. He had to accept that not everyone would be on board, that some would inevitably remain loyal to the conspirators, regardless of the consequences. Now, consider the ethical tightrope he was walking. He could have chosen to retaliate in kind, to engage in the same underhanded tactics as his adversaries. He could have leaked damaging information to the press, launched a smear campaign, or even resorted to blackmail. But that was not his way. He believed in playing by the rules, in upholding the principles of fairness and integrity, even when faced with the most egregious of betrayals. It was a matter of principle, a reflection of his core values, and a testament to his unwavering commitment to doing what was right, regardless of the cost. Healthy love in this context transcends mere affection. It metamorphoses into a strategic imperative. It necessitates a clear-eyed assessment of the situation, recognizing that salvaging the company entails not just vanquishing the conspirators, but also nurturing a renewed sense of trust among the remaining employees. This demands a transformative approach, one that prioritizes transparency, accountability, and above all, empathy. The ensuing days involved a complex dance of revelations and reconciliations. Each disclosure of Isabel's machinations brought forth a wave of disbelief, followed by a slow, grudging acceptance. Those mid-level managers, initially paralyzed by apprehension, found solace in the growing chorus of support for the man's leadership, emboldening them to come forward with corroborating evidence. This collective act of courage, however, was not without its casualties. Friendships fractured, loyalties were tested, and some careers were irrevocably damaged. On the other hand, true growth stems from adversity. The crisis served as a crucible, forging stronger bonds between those who remained steadfast in their commitment to the company's values. It became a rallying point, a shared experience that imbued them with a renewed sense of purpose. This collective resilience, in turn, became a powerful antidote to the cynicism and distrust that had permeated the organization. Furthermore, the situation demanded a redefinition of success. It was no longer solely about maximizing profits and market share. It was about creating a sustainable and ethical business model, one that prioritized the well-being of its employees and the integrity of its operations. This necessitated a fundamental shift in mindset, a move away from the relentless pursuit of individual gain and toward a more collaborative and compassionate approach. As a result, the man understood that true leadership lies not in wielding power, but in empowering others. He began to actively solicit input from employees at all levels of the organization, creating a culture of open communication and shared decision-making. He invested in leadership training programs designed to foster empathy, emotional intelligence, and ethical decision-making. He also implemented a whistleblower policy, providing a safe and confidential channel for employees to report misconduct, without fear of reprisal. To emphasize, conscious love in this context also means accepting that not all relationships can be salvaged. He had to come to terms with the fact that Isabel and the other conspirators had made their choices, and that their actions had consequences. While he harbored no ill will towards them, he also recognized that their continued presence within the company would be detrimental to its long-term health. As you face comparable circumstances in your personal or professional life, remember that the path to healing often involves difficult choices. It may require letting go of relationships that no longer serve your best interests, or setting boundaries with individuals who consistently violate your trust. Conscious love is not about blind forgiveness. It's about making informed decisions that protect your well-being and uphold your values. It's about recognizing that true strength lies not in clinging to the past, but in embracing the future with courage and conviction. With the immediate threats neutralized and the company stabilized, the man turned his attention to a subtler yet equally pernicious challenge: the lingering atmosphere of distrust. He recognized that rebuilding confidence would necessitate a fundamental shift in communication strategies, moving away from the carefully guarded pronouncements of the past toward a more transparent and inclusive dialogue. Rather than issuing directives from on high, he initiated a series of town hall meetings, forums where employees could openly voice their concerns, ask questions, and share their perspectives. These sessions were not merely performative. He actively listened to the feedback, incorporating it into his decision-making process. As a case in point, employees expressed anxieties about job security, fearing that the recent turmoil would lead to layoffs. In response, he implemented a policy guaranteeing no job losses for at least 1 year, coupled with a commitment to retraining and redeployment opportunities for those whose roles might evolve. This decisive action not only alleviated immediate concerns, but also demonstrated a genuine commitment to the well-being of his workforce, fostering a sense of loyalty and mutual respect. A further dimension of rebuilding trust involved acknowledging past missteps. The man, while not directly involved in the conspiracy, accepted responsibility for creating an environment where such deception could flourish. He publicly apologized for failing to detect the warning signs, for not fostering a culture of open communication and accountability. This act of humility, though difficult, resonated deeply with employees, signaling a willingness to learn from past mistakes and to Create a more ethical and transparent organization. To further illuminate this, he instituted a series of ethics workshops designed to equip employees with the tools and knowledge to identify and address ethical dilemmas. These workshops were not simply compliance exercises. They were interactive discussions exploring real-world scenarios and encouraging employees to challenge assumptions and question authority. The goal was to cultivate a culture where ethical considerations were paramount, where employees felt empowered to speak up against wrongdoing, and where integrity was valued above all else. In much the same way, he recognized the need to address the underlying psychological impact of the betrayal. The conspiracy had not only damaged the company's financial standing, but also eroded the emotional well-being of its employees. He implemented an employee assistance program, offering confidential counseling services to those who were struggling to cope with the aftermath of the crisis. This program provided a safe space for employees to process their emotions, to heal from the trauma of betrayal, and to rebuild their sense of trust and security. Moreover, the man sought to create a more inclusive and equitable workplace, one where all employees felt valued and respected, regardless of their background or position. He implemented diversity and inclusion initiatives designed to promote understanding and appreciation of different perspectives. He also established mentorship programs, pairing senior executives with junior employees, providing opportunities for guidance, support, and professional development. These initiatives not only fostered a more inclusive culture, but also helped to break down silos and promote collaboration across departments. Consider now how these actions collectively contributed to a renewed sense of hope and optimism within the organization. The man's leadership, characterized by transparency, empathy, and a commitment to ethical conduct, served as a beacon of light in a time of darkness. He demonstrated that it was possible to overcome adversity, to rebuild trust, and to create a better future, not just for the company, but for all its stakeholders. The true test of resilience, after the initial shockwaves subsided, lay in fostering authentic reconciliation, not just among the workforce, but also within the man himself. It became apparent that the experience had dredged up dormant vulnerabilities, triggering echoes of past betrayals and insecurities. He found himself grappling with a pervasive sense of suspicion, questioning the motives of even his most trusted allies. This internal turmoil, if left unaddressed, threatened to undermine his leadership and perpetuate a cycle of distrust. Consequently, a conscious effort toward self-compassion became paramount. He began practicing mindfulness, dedicating time each day to quiet contemplation and introspection. This allowed him to acknowledge his emotions without judgment, to recognize that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a testament to his humanity. He sought counsel from a therapist, a neutral third party who could provide objective feedback and guidance. This therapeutic process enabled him to unpack his emotional baggage, to identify and challenge his limiting beliefs, and to develop healthier coping mechanisms. In parallel, he endeavored to cultivate deeper connections with his family and friends, those individuals who had consistently offered unwavering support throughout his life. He made a conscious effort to be more present in their lives, to actively listen to their concerns, and to express his gratitude for their love and companionship. These authentic connections served as a powerful antidote to the isolation and loneliness that he had experienced during the crisis. Exploring further, he discovered a renewed appreciation for the simple pleasures in life, the things that had once brought him joy but had been neglected in his relentless pursuit of success. He resumed his passion for painting, spending hours immersed in the creative process, allowing his emotions to flow freely onto the canvas. He also rediscovered his love for music, attending concerts and listening to his favorite albums, finding solace and inspiration in the melodies and lyrics. These activities served as a reminder that life was about more than just work, that there was beauty and meaning to be found in the everyday moments. Consider for a moment how this journey of self-discovery transformed his leadership style. He became more empathetic, more understanding, and more attuned to the needs of his employees. He recognized that true leadership was not about commanding respect, but about earning it through genuine care and concern. He began to prioritize the well-being of his workforce, creating a supportive and nurturing environment where employees felt valued, respected, and empowered. Moving forward, he initiated a series of community outreach programs designed to give back to the society that had supported his success. He volunteered his time at local charities, mentoring underprivileged youth and providing support to homeless individuals. These acts of service not only made a tangible difference in the lives of others, but also helped him to reconnect with his own sense of purpose and meaning. They served as a reminder that true success was not measured by wealth or power, but by the positive impact one had on the world. Think now how this profound personal transformation rippled throughout the organization, creating a culture of compassion, integrity, and social responsibility. The company became known not just for its financial success, but also for its commitment to ethical conduct and its dedication to making a positive contribution to society. This, in turn, attracted top talent, strengthened its brand reputation, and fostered a loyal customer base. It became a living testament to the power of conscious love to transform not just individuals, but entire organizations. Even as the Parisian Empire regained its luster, a novel challenge emerged, recrafting its narrative. The scandal, though, handled with deftness, had nonetheless left an indelible mark on the public perception of the corporation. Shifting the focus from past misdeeds to future aspirations became pivotal. So he initiated a robust public relations campaign, showcasing the company's renewed commitment to ethical governance and community engagement. Not just press releases and photo ops, but genuine investment in projects that aligned with its declared values became paramount. With a new lens, the company championed sustainability initiatives, reducing its carbon footprint and promoting responsible resource management. Partnerships with local schools were forged, creating mentorship programs and scholarship opportunities for underprivileged youth. These endeavors weren't merely altruistic gestures. They were strategic investments, building goodwill and demonstrating a genuine commitment to the well-being of the community. This wasn't merely about repairing a damaged reputation. It was about constructing a more authentic and meaningful identity. In addition to external perception, realigning internal incentives proved equally vital. The old compensation structure, which had rewarded short-term gains at the expense of ethical considerations, was overhauled. Now performance metrics incorporated factors such as employee satisfaction, environmental impact, and community engagement. This sent a clear message that the company valued more than just profits. It valued people, planet, and purpose. Employees were encouraged to think beyond the bottom line, to consider the broader implications of their actions, and to align their work with the company's values. But changing ingrained behaviors takes time and dedication. He introduced regular ethics training sessions, not as a one-time event, but as an ongoing process of learning and development. These sessions were designed to be interactive and engaging, using case studies and role-playing exercises to help employees navigate complex ethical dilemmas. The goal was to create a culture where ethical considerations were not just a matter of compliance, but a deeply ingrained part of the company's DNA. In contrast to the previous era of centralized control, he fostered a more decentralized decision-making process, empowering employees at all levels of the organization to take ownership of their work and to contribute to the company's strategic direction proved invaluable. This not only improved morale and engagement, but also fostered a more innovative and responsive organization. Employees felt valued, respected, and empowered to make a difference. To add to this, the man established an internal ombudsman program, providing a confidential and impartial resource for employees to report concerns about ethical misconduct or unfair treatment. This program served as a safety net, ensuring that employees had a voice even when faced with difficult or sensitive situations. The Ombudsman was empowered to investigate complaints, to mediate disputes, and to recommend corrective actions. Now, consider how this new approach contrasted with the previous culture of secrecy and distrust. The company had become a beacon of transparency, openness, and accountability. Employees felt safe speaking up, knowing that their voices would be heard and that their concerns would be addressed. This created a virtuous cycle where trust fostered collaboration, innovation, and ultimately, greater success. The Parisian Empire wasn't just rebuilt. It was reimagined, transformed into a model of ethical leadership and corporate social responsibility. In the wake of the corporate rebirth, a subtle yet significant shift took place in the man's personal philosophy, a recalibration of his understanding of legacy. The empire, once viewed as the ultimate testament to his ambition, now served as a platform for something far more profound, the cultivation of future leaders. He initiated a program explicitly designed to identify and nurture high potential employees, individuals who possessed not only the technical skills, but also the ethical compass necessary to guide the company forward. This wasn't about cloning his own image. It was about fostering a diversity of perspectives and empowering the next generation to chart their own course. As a consequence, he began delegating responsibilities with greater alacrity, relinquishing control over day-to-day operations and entrusting key decisions to his protégés. This act of faith, though initially unnerving, proved to be transformative. It not only freed up his time to focus on strategic initiatives, but also provided invaluable learning opportunities for his successors. They were given the space to experiment, to make mistakes, and to learn from their experiences, all under his watchful yet unobtrusive guidance. It was akin to a master craftsman mentoring an apprentice, passing down not just the technical skills, but also the wisdom and insights accumulated over a lifetime. In a similar vein, he established a foundation dedicated to supporting social entrepreneurship, providing seed funding and mentorship to individuals who were using innovative business models to address pressing social problems. This venture moved beyond mere philanthropy. It was an investment in the future, a recognition that business could be a force for good, creating both economic value and social impact. He sought out individuals who were not only driven by profit, but also by a deep sense of purpose, those who were committed to making the world a better place. An added dimension of this legacy involved the preservation of the company's history. He commissioned a comprehensive archive, documenting not just the successes but also the failures, the challenges, and the lessons learned along the way. This wasn't about sanitizing the past. It was about creating a transparent record, a resource for future generations to draw upon. He recognized that history was not just a collection of facts and figures. It was a story, a narrative that could inspire, inform, and guide. Moreover, he became a vocal advocate for corporate social responsibility, using his influence to promote ethical business practices and to encourage other companies to follow suit. He spoke at conferences, wrote articles, and engaged in public debates, challenging the prevailing norms of corporate behavior and advocating for a more sustainable and equitable economic system. He believed that business had a moral obligation to serve the interests of all stakeholders, not just shareholders. Now, considering your own trajectory, contemplate how you might redefine your definition of success. Perhaps it's about mentoring younger colleagues, sharing your knowledge and experience, and helping them to reach their full potential. Perhaps it's about volunteering your time or donating to causes you care about, making a positive impact on your community. Perhaps it's about leaving behind a legacy of integrity, kindness, and compassion, inspiring others to live more meaningful lives. What contributions will echo through time? As the dust settled, the man found himself unexpectedly drawn to the very source that ignited the conflagration, the young girl, Sophie. Recognizing her innate perceptiveness, he sought to understand the world through her unclouded eyes. Rather than dismissing her insight as childish fancy, he actively engaged her in conversations, probing her understanding of fairness, justice, and the nuances of human interaction. This wasn't mere paternal affection. It was a deliberate effort to cultivate a new generation of ethical thinkers, individuals who could discern truth from falsehood with unwavering clarity. By shifting his attention, the man found new meaning in translating boardroom, strategizing into relatable lessons for Sophie. This fostered her ability to think critically about the world around her. He began utilizing everyday situations as case studies, dissecting moral quandaries presented in children's stories, or even playground dynamics. This approach transformed abstract ethical concepts into tangible realities, equipping her with the tools to navigate the complexities of human relationships and societal structures. For instance, when Sophie encountered a situation where a classmate was being excluded, he encouraged her to analyze the motivations behind the exclusion, the impact on the excluded child, and the ethical obligations of bystanders. To move this concept into reality, the man decided to establish a scholarship fund in Sophie's name, targeting students from disadvantaged backgrounds who demonstrated exceptional moral character and a commitment to social justice. This wasn't merely a symbolic gesture. It was a concrete investment in the future, empowering young people to become agents of positive change in their communities. The scholarship selection process emphasized not only academic achievement, but also ethical leadership, encouraging applicants to articulate their values and demonstrate their commitment to making a difference. Conversely, many felt that focusing solely on youth was a disservice to those who were entrenched in the old ways. Therefore, he created a mentorship program pairing seasoned executives with emerging leaders, fostering intergenerational dialogue and promoting the exchange of ideas. This program wasn't just about transferring skills and knowledge. It was about bridging the gap between different generations, challenging assumptions, and fostering a shared commitment to ethical leadership. The mentors were encouraged to share their own experiences, both successes and failures, providing valuable insights and guidance to their mentees. In a way that might be considered unexpected, the man also explored art as a means of ethical expression. He commissioned a series of public art installations, each designed to provoke thought and spark dialogue about important social issues. These installations weren't just aesthetic enhancements. They were powerful statements, challenging viewers to confront uncomfortable truths and to consider alternative perspectives. The artists were given complete creative freedom, allowing them to express their views without censorship or constraint. Another crucial layer of the man's transformation involved his renewed commitment to personal integrity. He understood that ethical leadership began with self-awareness and self-discipline. He began practicing mindfulness, cultivating a greater awareness of his thoughts, feelings, and actions. He also sought out feedback from trusted advisors, seeking to identify blind spots and to challenge his own biases. He recognized that ethical leadership was not a destination but a journey, a continuous process of learning and growth. As you consider the trajectory of your own life, ponder how you might leverage your experiences to inspire and empower others. How might you use your skills, your knowledge, and your influence to create a more just and equitable world? What legacy will you leave behind? In contemplating the shifting tides of the Parisian enterprise, one must acknowledge that a purely intellectual understanding of ethics proves insufficient. The true challenge rests in embodying those principles, transforming them from abstract ideals into tangible actions that permeate every facet of organizational life. To this end, the man championed a novel approach to leadership development, one that emphasized experiential learning and immersive engagement with real-world ethical dilemmas. He established a partnership with a local nonprofit organization, offering employees the opportunity to volunteer their time and skills to address pressing social needs. By way of illustration, members of the marketing team, accustomed to crafting persuasive narratives for commercial gain, found themselves tasked with developing public awareness campaigns for issues such as homelessness and food insecurity. This experience forced them to confront the ethical implications of their work, to consider the potential for manipulation and exploitation, and to harness their skills for the common good. Similarly, members of the finance team, typically focused on maximizing profits and minimizing costs, were challenged to evaluate the social and environmental impact of investment decisions. To fortify such transformations, the man instated a mentorship exchange with artisans, fostering not just business skills, but also an awareness of craftsmanship as a social good. This exchange wasn't a one-way street. Executives learned from artisans' unwavering dedication to quality and their deep connection to their craft. Such a relationship underscored the value of patience, perseverance, and the importance of creating something lasting and meaningful. Juxtaposing these initiatives, the man pushed for a comprehensive review of the company's supply chain, ensuring that it adhered to the highest ethical standards. This involved not only conducting rigorous audits of suppliers, but also building long-term relationships based on trust and mutual respect. The company worked with suppliers to improve working conditions, promote fair wages, and protect the environment. This wasn't just about minimizing risk. It was about creating a supply chain that reflected the company's values and contributed to a more sustainable and equitable global economy. Another vital aspect revolved around establishing a conflict resolution program, one that emphasized mediation and restorative justice. This program provided employees with a safe and confidential forum to address grievances, resolve disputes, and repair damaged relationships. The focus was not on assigning blame or punishing wrongdoing, but on fostering understanding, empathy, and reconciliation. This approach not only reduced the incidence of conflict, but also created a more harmonious and productive workplace. Diverging from conventional thinking, the man introduced a policy allowing employees to allocate a portion of their working hours to personal projects that aligned with the company's values. This initiative, dubbed Impact Time, empowered employees to pursue their passions, to contribute to their communities, and to develop new skills. This investment in employee well-being not only boosted morale and engagement, but also fostered a culture of innovation and creativity. Now consider how this holistic approach to ethical leadership might revolutionize your own sphere of influence. How might you transform your organization into a force for good, creating both economic value and social impact? What concrete steps can you take to embody your values, to inspire others, and to leave a lasting legacy of integrity and compassion? Turning from proactive ethical cultivation, consider the less charted waters of restorative justice within the C-suite itself. Rather than outright dismissal of those board members complicit in the prior malfeasance, the man explored the possibility of atonement and reconciliation. This was not born of naivete, but rather a shrewd calculation. Could these individuals, chastened and reformed, become powerful advocates for the new ethical paradigm? The process began with a series of private meetings, facilitated by a skilled mediator, where each former conspirator was invited to express remorse, acknowledge their wrongdoing, and propose concrete steps toward restitution. Taking a cue from indigenous practices, the emphasis shifted from punitive measures to repairing the harm inflicted upon the company and its stakeholders. One board member, for instance, volunteered to spearhead a new initiative focused on financial transparency, designing systems to prevent future fraud and ensure accountability. Another offered to dedicate a significant portion of their personal wealth to a fund supporting employees who had been negatively impacted by the scandal. These actions, while not fully erasing the past, demonstrated a genuine commitment to redemption and a willingness to use their influence for good. In a move seen as controversial by some, the man reinstated a limited number of the former conspirators to their positions, albeit with significantly reduced authority and increased oversight. This decision was not taken lightly, and it was contingent upon their unwavering adherence to the company's new ethical guidelines. It was a gamble, to be sure, but one that sent a powerful message that redemption was possible, that forgiveness could be earned, and that even those who had strayed could find their way back to the path of integrity. Yet, it's imperative to recognize the potential pitfalls of such an approach. Reintegration without genuine remorse or adequate safeguards could easily backfire, perpetuating a culture of impunity and undermining the company's ethical credibility. Therefore, the man implemented a rigorous monitoring system, tracking the behavior of the reinstated board members and soliciting feedback from employees. Any sign of recidivism would be met with swift and decisive action. However, the man also championed the importance of celebrating ethical leadership, publicly recognizing individuals who demonstrated exceptional integrity and a commitment to the company's values. This wasn't about creating a hierarchy of virtue, but rather about showcasing positive role models and inspiring others to emulate their behavior. The company established an annual awards ceremony, honoring employees who had gone above and beyond to uphold the company's ethical standards. Exploring a different avenue, the man invested heavily in data analytics, developing sophisticated algorithms to detect patterns of unethical behavior and to identify potential red flags. This wasn't about spying on employees, but rather about creating a proactive system to prevent wrongdoing before it occurred. The data was used to identify areas where ethical training was needed, to assess the effectiveness of compliance programs, and to identify potential vulnerabilities in the company's systems and processes. Now, consider how this applies when you face situations where forgiveness and reconciliation are on the table. How do you balance the need for accountability with the desire for redemption? What safeguards can you put in place to ensure that those who have wronged you do not repeat their mistakes? And how can you create a culture where ethical behavior is celebrated and rewarded, inspiring others to follow suit? Beyond institutional reforms, the man grappled with a disquieting realization: his own detachment. The gilded cage of wealth had insulated him, fostering a skewed perception of reality. To rectify this, he embarked on a self-imposed period of immersion, divesting himself of many trappings of privilege. He relocated, albeit temporarily, from his palatial estate to a modest apartment in a working-class arrondissement, seeking to reconnect with the everyday struggles of ordinary Parisians. This wasn't a publicity stunt, but a genuine attempt to understand the lived experiences of those whose lives his decisions impacted. Juxtapose this with the realization that true empathy demanded more than just geographical proximity. He enrolled in a series of workshops focused on active listening and nonviolent communication, honing his ability to connect with others on a deeper, more authentic level. He learned to suspend judgment, to validate the emotions of others, and to communicate his own needs and concerns with clarity and respect. This wasn't about becoming a therapist, but about becoming a more effective and compassionate leader. In a similar vein, the man realized he needed to confront his own biases and prejudices. He sought out opportunities to engage with individuals from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives. He attended cultural events, participated in community dialogues, and read books and articles that challenged his assumptions. This wasn't about political correctness, but about expanding his worldview and becoming a more inclusive and understanding human being. However, the man also came to appreciate the importance of self-care. The stress of the scandal had taken a toll on his physical and emotional health, leaving him feeling depleted and disconnected. He began prioritizing exercise, healthy eating, and adequate sleep. He also made time for activities that brought him joy and relaxation, such as spending time in nature, listening to music, and practicing meditation. This wasn't about being selfish, but about replenishing his energy and maintaining his well-being so that he could continue to lead with strength and compassion. Consider, too, the need to foster a culture of psychological safety within the organization. Employees needed to feel safe to speak up, to challenge authority, and to express dissenting opinions without fear of reprisal. The man implemented a policy explicitly, protecting whistleblowers from retaliation, ensuring that they could report wrongdoing without jeopardizing their careers. He also created a feedback mechanism, allowing employees to anonymously provide feedback on the company's leadership and culture. As a counterpoint, the man realized that building trust required more than just policies and procedures. It required a genuine commitment to transparency and authenticity. He began sharing his own vulnerabilities with his employees, admitting his mistakes and acknowledging his imperfections. This wasn't about seeking sympathy, but about demonstrating that he was human, that he was capable of learning and growing, and that he was committed to being a better leader. Now think about how you might integrate these principles into your own life and leadership style. How might you cultivate greater empathy, challenge your own biases, and foster a culture of psychological safety within your organization? What steps can you take to become a more authentic, transparent, and compassionate leader? Shifting from a reactive stance toward proactive community investment, the man decided to leverage the company's expertise for societal betterment, establishing a skills incubator. This initiative offered free, intensive training programs in areas such as digital marketing, data analysis, and sustainable business practices to residents of underserved communities. This wasn't just about corporate social responsibility. It was about creating pathways to economic empowerment, equipping individuals with the tools they needed to thrive in the 21st century economy. Unlike simple charity, this provided lasting, practical skills. In consequence, he forged strategic alliances with smaller, ethically aligned businesses, providing them with access to the company's resources and distribution networks. This move wasn't about absorbing competitors. It was about fostering a more collaborative and equitable business ecosystem, supporting entrepreneurs who were committed to social and environmental responsibility. These partnerships created synergistic opportunities, allowing the smaller businesses to scale their operations and reach new markets, while also benefiting from the company's expertise and infrastructure. An entirely fresh strategy involved instituting a reverse mentoring program, pairing senior executives with junior employees from diverse backgrounds. This measure wasn't merely about ticking diversity boxes. It was about challenging ingrained assumptions, fostering cross-cultural understanding, and promoting a more inclusive leadership style. The executives gained valuable insights into the perspectives and experiences of younger generations, while the junior employees had the opportunity to share their ideas and contribute to the company's strategic direction. Another significant alteration involved the creation of an ethical innovation lab, a dedicated space where employees could experiment with new technologies and business models that prioritize social and environmental impact. This initiative wasn't about chasing the latest trends. It was about harnessing the power of innovation to solve pressing global challenges. The lab provided employees with the resources, support, and freedom to explore new ideas, fostering a culture of creativity and purpose. Taking a broader view, the man championed a campaign for corporate transparency, advocating for greater disclosure of financial data, environmental impact, and social performance. This push wasn't just about complying with regulations. It was about holding businesses accountable for their actions and empowering consumers to make informed choices. He believed that transparency was essential for building trust and fostering a more responsible and sustainable economy. In a departure from traditional philanthropic endeavors, the man established a social impact fund, allocating a portion of the company's profits to invest in mission-driven organizations and social enterprises. This fund wasn't just about giving away money. It was about creating sustainable solutions to complex social problems. The fund provided patient capital, mentorship, and technical assistance to organizations that were working to address issues such as poverty, inequality, and climate change. Now, consider how you might translate these concepts into your own sphere of influence, regardless of your position or resources. How might you leverage your skills, your knowledge, and your network to create positive change in your community and beyond? What innovative strategies can you employ to promote ethical behavior, foster social responsibility, and build a more sustainable future? Beyond the tangible initiatives, the man dedicated himself to fostering a culture of intellectual humility within the Parisian dynasty. He instituted a series of unlearning workshops designed to deconstruct ingrained assumptions and challenge conventional wisdom. These sessions weren't about dispensing new knowledge, but about dismantling outdated paradigms and embracing a more fluid and adaptive mindset. Executives were encouraged to question their own expertise, to acknowledge the limits of their knowledge, and to remain open to new perspectives. To facilitate such recalibration, the man championed the integration of diverse disciplines, fostering cross-pollination of ideas and perspectives. He established partnerships with universities and research institutions, bringing in experts from fields such as sociology, psychology, and environmental science to consult on the company's strategic decisions. This wasn't about outsourcing expertise, but about broadening the company's intellectual horizons and challenging its conventional ways of thinking. Stemming from this, he pushed for the implementation of a failure-friendly culture, recognizing that mistakes were inevitable and often valuable learning opportunities. Employees were encouraged to experiment, to take risks, and to learn from their failures without fear of reprisal. The company celebrated fail-forward moments, sharing lessons learned from unsuccessful projects and encouraging others to embrace a more experimental mindset. In light of this cultural shift, the man also came to appreciate the importance of storytelling. He realized that data and analytics alone were not enough to inspire and motivate employees. He needed to connect with them on an emotional level, to share stories that conveyed the company's values and purpose. He began collecting and sharing stories of employees who had gone above and beyond to uphold the company's ethical standards, showcasing their courage, compassion, and commitment to making a difference. Considering that, the man also sought to leverage the power of design thinking to solve ethical dilemmas. He established a Design for Good initiative, challenging employees to use design thinking principles to create innovative solutions to social and environmental problems. This involved empathizing with stakeholders, defining the problem, ideating solutions, prototyping and testing, and iterating based on feedback. This human-centered approach to problem-solving fostered creativity, collaboration, and a deeper understanding of the needs of others. However, he also came to appreciate the importance of silence and reflection. In a world of constant noise and distraction, he recognized the need for moments of quiet contemplation to allow employees to process their experiences, to connect with their inner values, and to recharge their batteries. He created designated quiet zones within the workplace, providing employees with a space to meditate, reflect, and disconnect from the demands of their work. Now, reflecting on all, consider how you might cultivate a culture of intellectual humility, embrace diverse perspectives, and foster a spirit of experimentation within your own sphere of influence. What concrete steps can you take to challenge your own assumptions, to learn from your failures, and to connect with others on a deeper, more meaningful level? Moving beyond structured programs, the man understood the necessity of weaving ethics into the very fabric of everyday interaction. He instituted moral compass moments, brief, Informal discussions held at the start of meetings, where teams would grapple with a hypothetical ethical conundrum, fostering a culture of ethical deliberation. These weren't about finding the right answer, but about honing the ability to reason through complex moral dilemmas, considering various perspectives, and articulating one's values. An example might involve a scenario where a competitor is rumored to be facing financial difficulties. Is it ethical to aggressively target their clients, even if it could potentially lead to their demise? A different tack involved encouraging radical candor, a culture where employees were encouraged to provide honest, direct feedback to one another, even when it was uncomfortable. This wasn't about being mean or disrespectful, but about fostering a climate of trust and accountability, where individuals felt safe to challenge the status quo and to hold each other to high ethical standards. For instance, if a colleague was observed cutting corners on a project, it was considered a responsibility, not an act of disloyalty, to address the issue directly. Conversely, he also promoted mindful disagreement, a practice of engaging in constructive conflict, where individuals could respectfully challenge each other's ideas without resorting to personal attacks or defensiveness. This involved actively listening to opposing viewpoints, seeking to understand the reasoning behind them, and articulating one's own position with clarity and humility. An example might involve a debate over the merits of a particular marketing campaign. Rather than dismissing opposing viewpoints, individuals were encouraged to explore the underlying assumptions and values that informed their perspectives. To enhance this, the man integrated values-based recognition, a system where employees were recognized and rewarded not only for their performance, but also for their adherence to the company's core values. This sent a clear message that ethical behavior was valued as highly as financial success. For instance, an employee who went above and beyond to help a colleague, even if it meant sacrificing their own personal gain, would be publicly recognized and rewarded. Furthermore, the man championed ethical storytelling, a practice of sharing narratives that illustrated the company's values and inspired employees to act with integrity. This involved collecting and sharing stories of employees who had made difficult ethical decisions, showcasing their courage, compassion, and commitment to doing what was right. These stories served as powerful reminders of the company's purpose and the importance of upholding its values. As an alternative, the man sought to leverage the power of gamification to promote ethical behavior. He created a values challenge, a series of interactive games and activities designed to test employees' knowledge of the company's ethical guidelines and to encourage them to apply those guidelines in real-world scenarios. This made ethics training more engaging and memorable, fostering a deeper understanding of the company's values. Now, consider how you might infuse these principles into your own workplace, regardless of your position or authority. How might you create moral compass moments, encourage radical candor, promote mindful disagreement, implement values-based recognition, foster ethical storytelling, and leverage the power of gamification to promote ethical behavior? Eschewing the common practice of top-down pronouncements, the man championed a novel approach, decentralized ethical ambassadors. He empowered employees from every stratum of the organization to serve as informal ethics advisors, creating a network of peer support and guidance. These individuals, selected not for their seniority, but for their perceived integrity and empathy, underwent specialized training in conflict resolution, active listening, and ethical decision-making. Their role wasn't to enforce rules or pass judgment, but rather to serve as trusted confidants, providing a safe space for colleagues to discuss ethical concerns and explore potential solutions. Dovetailing with this, the man initiated values circles, regular forums where small groups of employees could engage in open and honest conversations about ethical challenges they were facing in their work. These circles weren't structured as formal training sessions, but rather as opportunities for peer learning and mutual support. Participants were encouraged to share their experiences, to ask questions, and to challenge each other's assumptions, fostering a culture of collective ethical reflection. Think of it as a moral gymnasium, where employees could flex their ethical muscles and build their capacity for ethical reasoning. In a marked departure from traditional performance reviews, the man introduced ethical audits, assessments designed to evaluate not only an employee's performance, but also their adherence to the company's values. These audits weren't conducted by supervisors, but by independent third parties, ensuring objectivity and impartiality. The results of the audits were used to provide employees with constructive feedback, to identify areas for improvement, and to recognize those who were consistently demonstrating ethical leadership. Imagine an integrity checkup, ensuring that employees are not only skilled but also ethically sound. As another consideration, the man advocated for values-based hiring, a process that prioritized ethical character over technical skills. Job applicants were evaluated not only on their qualifications and experience, but also on their demonstrated commitment to ethical principles. The company used behavioral interviewing techniques to assess applicants' values, exploring how they had handled ethical dilemmas in the past and how they would respond to similar challenges in the future. The aim was to build a workforce composed of individuals who were not only competent, but also morally upright. Taking a cue from the medical profession, the man implemented ethical rounds, regular meetings where teams would review recent ethical incidents, analyzing the factors that contributed to the incident, and identifying strategies to prevent similar occurrences in the future. These rounds weren't about assigning blame or punishing wrongdoing, but about learning from mistakes and improving the company's ethical performance. Think of it as a moral autopsy, examining the causes of ethical failures and identifying ways to prevent them from happening again. To deepen this, the man sought to cultivate a sense of ethical ownership, empowering employees to take responsibility for the company's ethical performance. He established ethics committees at every level of the organization, giving employees a direct voice in shaping the company's ethical policies and practices. These committees were responsible for identifying ethical risks, developing ethical guidelines, and monitoring the company's ethical performance. The intent was to transform ethics from a top-down mandate into a grassroots movement. Now, as you ponder your own sphere of influence, consider how you might empower others to become ethical leaders, foster a culture of collective ethical reflection, and integrate ethical considerations into every aspect of your organization's operations. What innovative strategies can you employ to cultivate ethical ownership, promote ethical accountability, and build a more ethical and responsible future? Yet, beyond structural modifications and individual empowerment, lay the subtler art of cultivating ethical imagination. The man initiated a company-wide values jam, a virtual brainstorming session employing gamified collaboration tools, soliciting innovative ideas for integrating ethics into every facet of their operations, from product design to supply chain management. This wasn't about imposing predetermined solutions, but about harnessing the collective creativity of the workforce to generate novel approaches to ethical challenges. For example, employees proposed embedding ethical considerations into the very algorithms used to personalize customer experiences, ensuring that these algorithms did not perpetuate biases or exploit vulnerabilities. Conversely, recognizing the limitations of purely rational approaches, the man championed the incorporation of artistic expression as a means of ethical exploration. He commissioned a series of ethical murals throughout the company headquarters, each depicting a different aspect of the company's values, created by local artists in collaboration with employees. These murals weren't just decorative elements. They were visual reminders of the company's ethical commitments, serving as a constant source of inspiration and reflection. Imagine walking through the office and being confronted by a powerful depiction of fairness, justice, or compassion, prompting you to consider how those values applied to your own work. To bolster this creative surge, the man spearheaded a values film festival, inviting employees to submit short films exploring ethical dilemmas they had encountered in their professional lives. These films, ranging from serious dramas to comedic spoofs, were screened at a company-wide event, followed by lively discussions and debates. This provided a safe and engaging platform for employees to share their experiences, to challenge assumptions, and to learn from each other's perspectives. Think of it as a moral mirror, reflecting the ethical complexities of the workplace and prompting viewers to consider their own values and responsibilities. In contrast to purely internal initiatives, the man sought to leverage the company's influence to promote ethical behavior beyond its own walls. He established an ethical standards consortium, bringing together industry leaders, academics, and nonprofit organizations to develop and promote best practices for ethical conduct in the business world. This wasn't about self-regulation, but about fostering a collective commitment to ethical behavior, creating a race to the top where companies competed not only on profits, but also on their ethical performance. Picture a moral compass guiding the entire industry, steering it toward a more responsible and sustainable future. To amplify this effect, the man backed a values verification system, an open-source platform empowering consumers to assess the ethical integrity of various products and services. This system wasn't about endorsing specific brands, but about providing consumers with the data they needed to make informed choices, rewarding companies that were committed to ethical practices and penalizing those that were not. This leveraged market forces to incentivize ethical behavior, creating a powerful incentive for companies to prioritize values over profits. Now, as you consider your own capacity to shape ethical culture, contemplate how you might tap into the power of creativity, collaboration, and market forces to promote ethical behavior beyond your immediate sphere of influence. What innovative strategies can you employ to inspire others, to challenge the status quo, and to build a more ethical and responsible world? Reflecting on this journey so far, we begin to perceive a richer tapestry than initially envisioned. It's not merely about averting corporate disaster or implementing ethical guidelines. It's about fostering a fundamental shift in perspective, a reevaluation of what truly constitutes success and lasting value. The narrative has subtly morphed from one of damage control to one of profound transformation, where crisis serves as the unlikely catalyst for genuine progress. Consider the cumulative effect of these endeavors. It's akin to transforming a barren landscape into a flourishing ecosystem. The ethical initiatives, mentorship programs, and community investments are not isolated acts of benevolence, but rather interconnected elements that contribute to a thriving and sustainable whole. Each action ripples outward, influencing the organization's culture, its relationships with stakeholders, and its impact on the wider world. The initial focus on damage mitigation gives way to the cultivation of long-term positive influence. The journey underscores a recurring theme: the limitations of external mandates and the transformative power of internal conviction. While policies and procedures are undoubtedly necessary, they are ultimately insufficient to ensure ethical behavior. True integrity stems from a deep-seated commitment to values, a willingness to challenge the status quo, and a capacity for empathy and compassion. It's about fostering a culture where ethical considerations are not merely a matter of compliance, but a deeply ingrained part of the organization's DNA. As we pivot towards the final reflection, it becomes increasingly clear that the true legacy of leadership lies not in the accumulation of wealth or power, but in the cultivation of ethical character. It's about inspiring others to embrace their own moral compass, to act with integrity, and to make a positive difference in the world. The crisis, in effect, becomes a crucible for ethical leadership, forging stronger individuals and a more resilient organization. Drawing these strands together, we see that the Parisian Empire's transformation is not just a story of corporate survival, but a testament to the enduring power of human values. The man's journey from a detached cocoon to an engaged and compassionate leader serves as an inspiration, demonstrating that even the most entrenched habits and beliefs can be challenged and transformed. The path forward, therefore, is not about clinging to the past, but about embracing the future with courage, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to building a better world. The ultimate question is not merely what we achieve, but how we achieve it, what impact we leave behind. The Parisian Empire, once teetering on the precipice of ruin, now stands as a testament to the transformative power of ethical awakening. What began as a desperate act of self-preservation evolved into a profound journey of self-discovery, a testament to the enduring capacity for human growth and redemption. The man, initially driven by a desire to protect his legacy, ultimately discovered that his true legacy lay not in the accumulation of wealth or power, but in the cultivation of ethical character and the empowerment of others. The story transcends the confines of the corporate world, offering a potent metaphor for the challenges and opportunities that confront us all. We are each, in our own way, architects of our own empires, builders of lives and legacies that shape the world around us. The choices we make, the values we uphold, and the actions we take have far-reaching consequences, impacting not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. It is a call to examine the foundations upon which we build, ensuring that they are rooted in integrity, compassion, and a genuine commitment to the common good. The narrative serves as a subtle but insistent invitation to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength. The man's willingness to confront his own shortcomings, to acknowledge his biases, and to seek guidance from others was not a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to his courage and his commitment to personal growth. It highlights the importance of self-reflection, of challenging our own assumptions, and of remaining open to new perspectives. The true practice of ethical living begins with a willingness to look inward, to confront our own shadows, and to strive to become the best versions of ourselves. In the end, the most profound lesson gleaned from this transformation is that lasting success is inextricably linked to ethical integrity. The Parisian Empire's resurgence was not merely a matter of clever strategy or skillful execution. It was the direct result of a fundamental shift in values, a commitment to transparency, accountability, and a genuine concern for the well-being of all stakeholders. It demonstrates that ethical behavior is not just a moral imperative, but a strategic advantage, fostering trust, loyalty, and a sustainable business model. The true practice begins now, in the quiet moments of reflection, in the everyday choices we make, and in the unwavering commitment to living a life of purpose and integrity. The world desperately needs ethical leaders, individuals who are not only competent, but also compassionate. Individuals who are not only driven by ambition, but also by a deep sense of responsibility. May this narrative serve as a gentle reminder that the power to create a better world lies within each of us, and that the journey toward ethical awakening is a lifelong pursuit, one that is both challenging and profoundly rewarding.